Yes.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is 6 o'clock, and we do have a quorum present. All of the commissioners are here, and so it is time to start working on the agenda for the NPU Board and Sewer Authority meeting of August 31st, 2021. The first item on the agenda is a public hearing on rates. And I'd like to make sure that everyone understands that this is not a public hearing on the general issues that the public wishes to comment on. This is specifically on some rate proposals. And so discussion is limited to that. We will have a public comment period following. I'd like to call to order the NPU public hearing to receive comment on proposed rate adjustments that were presented at our last board meeting on July 27th, 2021. There are 2 items for discussion this evening. The first are technical revisions to the wording of some of our existing rates. These are clarifications that will not result in higher rates for our customers. We are making these adjustments to correct a few minor technical line items within our rates. Secondly is our new economic development rate that we hope will encourage new customers commercial customers to locate within Norwich. This new rate will allow for a lower initial rate for new, larger electric commercial customers, gradually increasing over 5 years. It also requires that any new customer looking to take advantage of this incentive enter into a formal agreement with NPU. And with that, Chris, we'll have a brief presentation to provide a bit more detail on these 2 items.
All right. Thank you, Bob. Last month, we did provide a much more detailed presentation. We also presented this in the Finance and Audit Committee meeting. And Steve, can you pull the slides up?
Okay, tonight is, as Bob said, it will be the public rate hearing for revisions to gas and electric rates. As Bob mentioned, it's in 2 parts. There are some technical and wording clarifications on a number of rates as shown here, which we went through the detail of in earlier meetings. There is no impact to the rates themselves, so these changes have no impact to anyone's bills. And also, we're proposing the implementation of an economic development rate for the large customers. Key thing there is that in the first year, that would provide savings of over 12%, depending on the size of the customer, which over a 5-year period, that would obviously go down. The process so far, we provided the detailed presentations to the board, Finance and Audit Subcommittee, and to the entire board at the July meetings. At the July meeting, the board voted to have a public hearing set and notice the meeting on the 13th in the day newspaper for tonight's board meeting. So we're requesting the board to consider approval of the rates prior to September 30th. It can be tonight. It can be at the next board meeting in September. And if approved, the rates will go into effect for all billings on November 1st, which is when all of our other rate revisions for the rate track will be going into effect as well. And that is the brief presentation. I can call up any parts of the old presentation that we did or answer any questions that anyone has.
Do you have any questions from the Board of Commissioners? No. All right. Are there any members of the public who would like to make comment about either of these items? Mr. Mayor.
Good evening. Thank you all. First, I want to thank this commission. Over the last 4 or 5 years, you've made it your best interest to actually develop incentives for businesses to locate here in the city, and I want to thank you for doing that. I look at this proposal, it's like other investment instruments. The Fed created the Opportunity Zone program. We participated. We have 3 zones in Norwich. We have 2 investments right now that have capital gain investors in it. The Enterprise Zone program, that also represents an instrument that's used in order to attract new businesses here, which we have a large area, enterprise zone. We also have what I call the enterprise zone look-alike, anywhere in the city. 2 years, the taxes are frozen, 5 years, the improved assets that are put in, but then the increase is over that 5 years. And what you're doing is helping a business locate, begin operation, and often the business makes it or fails in the first 3 years based on cash flow and market share. So I look at this as just another tool in the toolbox, but it's much more than that. It represents your interest in farming, if you will, large industry uses, I hope. Your pamphlet talks, your notes here talk about one such industry, but could apply to anyone else. And I think you're taking a proactive measure. I think it's really good. Good for the city. It's good for long-term outcomes. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Do we have any other commentators online?
Kevin Brown has his hand raised on the online.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. To the, I'd just like to say, and just as a matter of, by means of introduction, Kevin Brown, President of the Norwich Community Development Corporation. For small business or large, when it comes to control, echo the mayor's comments about how beneficial this is, but I'll just point out that when it comes down to, reaching that stage of success, you really only have that you, and that's labor, cost of goods, and the cost of your utilities. And frankly, in most cases, you really don't.
Excuse me, Kevin?
Yes.
Kevin, can you hear us?
Yes.
Can you hear us okay, Kevin? Because we're having a hard time hearing you.
Can I get closer to this mic, perhaps?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Kevin, are you there? All right, Kevin, we're having a hard time. You're coming through garbled. Can you try again?
He's pulling back in.
Well, maybe Kevin, if you can hear us, maybe you want to call in a second time and try to reestablish this. And if we have any other commentators, perhaps they can speak now.
Hey, Kevin, you're coming across very garbled. Let me see if I can put you on my speaker next to the microphone. All right, now he's got it. Kevin, you have an interference problem. Can you turn off your speaker?
Hear me?
Yeah, can you turn off your speaker on your device?
Yep. Very good. Okay, so thank you. Sorry for the technical glitch. I just like this is Kevin Brown, President of the Norwich Community Development Corporation, and I would just extend the mayor's comments and say that when it comes to getting through that tough water of getting the business up on step of those first 3 to 5 years, you really only have 3 cost centers that you can control, and that's labor, cost of goods, and utilities. And frankly, you don't really have control over utilities. And I think that this is a very important initiative to help bring business to Norwich and frankly give us a leg up, an edge over the competition. As we all know, utility rates continue to rise, have risen for the last 10 years. So any community that has an advantage like this, I think, has a leg up on other communities. And so I appreciate that you guys are taking this under consideration, and I hope that the board will vote favorably. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other people who would like to make public comment about the rate proposals? Hearing none and not seeing any apparently in the waiting room on Zoom or anything, I will call this hearing to a close, and we will we will now move to the 15-minute public comment period. And are there any members of the public who wish to make any sort of comments about NPU or the sewer authority or other utility matters? I would remind people of two things. First of all, this is not created to be a debating forum or to be a question and answer session. This is an opportunity for you to make your comments, which we will take seriously and consider at some point. But we should not engage in give and take here. And secondly, to move this along, we would ask that you confine your comments to about 3 minutes. And with that, if there's anyone waiting in the waiting room to speak, I would encourage them to do so. Once again, if there's anyone who wishes to make general public comments, this is the public comment period. If you would like to say anything, please feel free to do so. And I'll ask our staff folks, are there any indications of people who called in who are waiting to get on, or?
Just one, but they're muted, so they may just be listening in.
All right. Well, I'll try one more time for the person who's muted. If you want to talk, unmute yourself and make your comments. And if not, we're going to close the public hearing and move on. And hearing nothing, we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is approval of the minutes. I'd accept the motion to approve the minutes of the last regular meeting of NPU's Board and Sewer Authority meeting of July 27th, 2021. We have a motion to accept the minutes. So moved. We have a first and a second. All those in favor? Aye. The vote is unanimous. The minutes are approved. Oh, I'm sorry. And we have one abstention. The next item on the agenda is notifications for finance and audit subcommittees, or subcommittee. With our new commissioner, Sean Avent, now in place, we can now reconstitute our two subcommittees. Are there any nominations for our finance and audit subcommittee? And I'll add, just in some side discussions earlier, we had talked about Mike and continuing to chair it, and Bill Wazika to be on it, and I would come as well. But if there are any people who want to do different things, I'm more than happy to listen to you. But hearing none, do we approve those three people to be on the finance and audit subcommittee?
I have a question. With the freedom of information issue, we have to publish the meeting times or something?
Yeah, we do, but we had to do that with two people, so.
Okay.
All those in favor, please do I have a motion to accept the appointments to the finance and audit subcommittee?
I'll make that motion, Bob.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Thank you. All those in favor? Unanimous. The next item is the Economic Development Subcommittee. The Economic Development Subcommittee emerged a while back primarily to monitor what was going on with Business Park North. That may be an ongoing subject, but we want to broaden that substantially, given all of the opportunities that may exist for Norwich Public Utilities and the various forms of federal funding that is becoming available. And so, again, I will ask if there are any nominations for the Economic Development Subcommittee, but also note that earlier on we had heard some expressions of interest from Bill Wazika and Sean and myself to be on the committee. If anyone else wants to participate, they're more than welcome to do so. But if that's the group or want to add to it, please let me know.
I'll make a motion.
All right. you very much. We have a second. All those in favor? Thank you very much. Next item is information and updates provided to the board prior to tonight's meeting. Are there any questions for Chris or staff on the materials that were provided in the board packet on Friday? That included the leadership team template and the financial update.
I have one question on, a new proposal that I saw here on Riverview Heights. What is that, proposal? Do you have any details on it, or?
Nothing significant beyond what's been provided. It's a new proposed development. Pennsylvania Development will provide utility services, energy efficiency services, all that sort of stuff along with it. So we don't know too much beyond what we have listed there.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions?
I had one question for Larry on the DAF at Stony Brook. Is that was supposed to be online by the end of July? Is that still?
It's looking at the end of September right now.
Okay.
There's a hydraulic issue that the engineer needs to figure out. The solution is up in front of DDA for approval.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
All right, hearing no other questions, we'll move on to the next item, which is the CMEC update. Commissioner Peel, can you give us an update?
Yes, indeed. Okay. The CMEC board met on August 26th. The objective summary for July showed the net cost deviation to benchmark to be 10% below budget, and the year-end projection to also be 10% below budget. The all-in total member return value is 1% over budget. And in that case, over is considered a negative, with a projected year-end value of 2% over budget at $101 per megawatt hour. The project portfolio for July was 16% above budget. In that case, that's a good number. With Pierce, Hydro-Quebec, Transmission Project Number 1, Energy Storage, and DG all showing positive as drivers. Microgen was 10% below budget due to unbudgeted repairs on 2 units. Sub-base fuel project incurred an additional potential delay with an overheating issue that the vendor, Fuel Cell Energy, is addressing. Energy market analysis showed West Texas intermediate price at $72.49 per barrel, which is higher than last month and high historically. And ultra-low sulfur diesel is $16 per decatherm, $6.55 above budget. As a comparison, Algonquin Citygate gas price is $3 per decatherm. The energy market news, real quick, ISO New England rarely gets a shout out, but they got some positive news, and they said that regional transmission investment continues to bolster reliability. Since 2002, the ISO's work in power system planning, one of its 3 critical roles, has facilitated $11.7 billion in transmission investment. In addition to bolstering reliability, the project has decreased wholesale energy costs and prepared the grid for a greener future. The recent activation of a transmission line upgrade to Greater Boston brought the total number of project components put into service over the last 2 decades at 834 projects. The board approved a resolution to restructure the board committees and dissolve the Joint Compensation Committee and the Ad Hoc Strategic Planning Committee. Joint Compensation Committee will be replaced with an ad hoc CEO, Performance and Compensation Committee, which will be delegated to the Budget and Governance Committee. The responsibility to administer the strategic plan will fall to the Governance Committee. The board approved a resolution to allow the CEO to negotiate an amendment to the Mohegan Tribe Utility Authority, including an extension of the power service agreement to 2031, or 10 years from now. And lastly, as early as next month, CMEC may have a significant announcement concerning one of its assets whose portfolio performance has been affected by the capacity markets. That's all I can say on that. That was in executive session. And that is all.
Thank you, Stu. Do we have any questions for Stu? Hearing none, the next item on the agenda is the NEPA annual conference. Commissioner Raven, do you have any comments?
Sure. The NEPA conference was very, informational for me, and I was able to learn a lot of different opportunities for us in New England, specifically here at NDU, where we can start to reduce the carbon footprint. That's trending now, that seems to be picking up a lot of steam with some of our other counterparts in the New England area. I'm noticing that during some legislative updates from an individual that this is definitely going to be here to stay. It's not something that's just temporarily, and it seems as though we should look to at some opportunities for us to reduce our carbon footprint. I know that my limited knowledge of our construction downtown, that we put in some plastic piping, and we're telling somebody about what we did in Norwich. There was a presentation on using hydrogen and how to fuse that into natural gas and different opportunities. I'm not saying that, we should do that right away. I'm not saying that it's going to happen tomorrow. However, there are some opportunities for us to grow, it seems like, in reducing the carbon footprint, and seeing how nuclear conversion using hydrogen, also wind turbine energy seems to be picking up a lot of steam, especially with one of our counterparts at
MWAC.
So it seems like they're trending to use wind turbine technology, and also there seems to be a huge push in New England for this hydrogen utilization, and there are quite a few presenters who are really into reducing nuclear waste as well too. Even though it seems as though natural gas or natural resources is going to be cheaper in the long haul, it might not be to our best benefit going forward. I'm just saying best benefit for individuals, not just MPU, but it seems it's going to be cheaper. But also there has been a hard push for the use of lithium-ion batteries to be infused in different ways. So, with that being said, it looks like there are some trending things that we can be a part of to help us reduce the carbon footprint and keep us on the cutting edge. It seems like we've been doing a great job with that so far, but there's definitely some opportunities for us to grow and be more efficient, in the carbon area, especially seeing how things are going to start to come down from the legislative perspective. And from that, I would say that the government influence has been it's going to be very influential in the reduction going forward in the future of how a lot of energy programs are created with clean energy and bills and grants and money is available for that. So I would say that that's something that we should look into as a review. So did I miss anything, Chris? Or
No, but one thing is that NEPA will be providing us all of the presentations, and we'll share them with the entire board, so everyone can at least review the material. And that's also a great opportunity to ask Ashan, who attended everything, Jeff, who also attended everything, and you can ask me, but I only caught the second day because of the storm response. So,
Jeff, did I miss anything?
No, I think that was great. I mean, it's really, the technology is enabling us to, everybody talks about renewables, but the energy storage aspect of that, and not all of that can be accomplished with batteries. And that's where the hydrogen comes in, and a lot of new technologies, very, very aggressive political goals out there. And I think the industry is really trying to grasp how they're going to meet, all of us are going to meet those aggressive political goals. So,
And it seems that we're right along with some of the other counterparts in regard to technology with our solar farm, and now we're noticing that people are using solar and wind turbines together to store the energy, to share it. I guess that's the biggest challenge, is to store it and turn it from AC to DC. Don't quote me. I'm not an engineer nor am I an electrical expert. However, I do understand some basic principles, and it seems like there's some challenges, but there's a great opportunity where people are using solar energy during the day energy at night and fusing that back into the system somehow in a pipeline or some floating wires to get back to land. So those are some of the trends that we're seeing, that I saw, that I've talked to a lot of different people, and there's some really cool products to help us out with our energy efficiency rebate program that we have. I think that we can, give some vendors to help us along the way with that as well. So that's.
Thank you very much. That was a very good report.
Thank you.
I mean, I think it's worth noting, particularly since we just talked about CMAC, that at one point, CMAC had, I think, the largest solar farm in the state of Connecticut, in the Norwich Business Park. And well, it still does, but it has not performed like we had hoped. But I think the key is that technology is changing all the time. And so, the batteries at the solar farm in the Norwich Business Park have not performed like we had hoped. Quite amazingly, the installers were surprised that they didn't work as well when it was cold. So there have been some issues there, but it's entirely possible that such a development would perform dramatically differently if it used 2022, 2023 technology, as opposed to, what would that be, 2016?
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely going to be an issue, and I agree with you.
Yeah, but it's such, I don't want to sort of start a debate, but it seems to me it's so tricky, because if you don't invest in something like that, then you don't really work out the kinks. You don't really find out, and the developers have this imaginary product, or these engineers have this imaginary product that you don't know whether it's succeed or fail. So, with that, I think it's great, to try and make some improvements and, and continue to be on the cutting edge and try new technology to help us advance along the way. So.
Yeah, what we told CMAC at the board level, it came up that Eversource in United Illuminating were forced to buy power from Millstone. It was a little bit more expensive than making power from gas. And they complained a little bit, but they had to do it. Millstone puts out like 2,500, I think, megawatts, something like that, which is, the whole state's need is like 8,000. So Millstone is 30% of the load, which is huge. And it doesn't qualify as green, but it qualifies as renewable. Okay, so it doesn't have any carbon emissions, so it actually meets the governor's goals. So that was good. And then we can sit back as CMAC and we can just pick off the cheapest power that's out there. But at the board level, we said the same thing you said. We don't want to be in a position where all of a sudden the governor, we stick out like a sore thumb now because we're buying all the cheapest electricity, and Eversource is forced to buy others that's more expensive, and then we get forced to do something that we don't want. So let's not put ourselves in that position. Let's get into the market and not shy away from renewables and all that, and don't find ourselves in a bad position. But they are more expensive right now, and as Bob said, the sun is free, the wind is free, so this power should not be more expensive, but in the market it's more expensive, and a lot of that has to do with ISO New England, and that is a 45-day conversation, which I can't even begin to speak with any authority to. It is so dense and complicated, all the rules they have in place to make sure that all of the people that generate power have a kind of a fair market value to stay in the market. And so it's a very difficult thing, but right now wind and solar are not addressed by ISO in the capacity market. So they can't get involved and make money in the capacity market. So that hurts them tremendously, and that's why they wind up being more expensive, in my humble opinion. So they were tasked to figure out a way to get solar and wind into the capacity market, but it really comes down to batteries at the end of the day. And right now, batteries are expensive, but I guarantee in the next 20 years, people will be working night and day, finding ways to store electric energy. And as soon as you do that, then you can shut off all the coal-fired plants, all the gas-fired plants, you can make all the power you need from wind. If there's enough wind power off the coast of Maine to power the entire Northeast, that's how big it is. So that's probably 20, 30 years away, but that's going to happen as long as people stick with it. So.
Yeah, the biggest thing I said, that hydrogen is going to be a component. They break it down to about half. So half of the need can be addressed with traditional batteries, lithium-ion battery technology, things like that. But because of the capacity factor, a lot of times the wind's blowing when we don't need the energy.
Well, it's always blowing when you don't need it, right?
Exactly. So you use that energy to create hydrogen. Again, it's a little bit bit rocket science, but there's legitimacy to it. And then that hydrogen ultimately can be burned or used as a fuel cell or something along those lines to create energy on the backside. So very cool to hear what we're talking about.
Was, and, just one last piece, hydrogen, they seem like they have these hydrogen refueling stations now, kind of like a Tesla electric station. I've seen one, actually I saw one in Hartford at the gas station most recently. It was a hydrogen electric station, and it seems like that's going to be something that's, around. They have new hydrogen fields, truckers, 18-wheelers, and cars now that are on the road. More of it in, outside in New Zealand, Austria, and other parts of the world, but not so much concentrated here in the U.S. So we don't really know what the international carbon footprint standards are. They're not the same as our U.S. ones, so there seems to be a little overlay because there's no global coalition to regulate that. So with that, it was good, informative information to say that, we're moving in the right direction, but there's going to be a shift pretty soon, and a lot of it is going to be pushed through legislation.
And I think it's important, and this came up in the discussion, that there's not just one solution for all purposes. For example, hydrogen is considered to be a very attractive option for trucks because getting electric motors and batteries to power trucks on long-haul deliveries is a lot different challenge than a car. And for example, Cummins, which is a big truck operation, is working very hard in terms of developing hydrogen engines for their trucks. So there are going to be different solutions for different situations. And I think, it was easy early on to just say that there was going to be one solution for all things, and that's not the case. You have to look at each thing individually. All right, well, thanks very much.
Thank you.
The next item is some action items, and the first action item is the sewer plant upgrade design funding ordinance. Chris, who's going to speak about that?
So Larry Sullivan is going to give us an upgrade of where we are on our sewer plant upgrade and on the opportunity for DEEP to fund the additional design, which we were not sure they were going to fund because we designed it once, they changed the specifications, didn't approve it, but now we're in the last leg of the redesign, and Larry will give you an update.
True statement. Good evening. Actually, I have two presentations. We'll do the first presentation on a resolution for approving an ordinance for the updated design of improvements and expansions of the wastewater treatment plant. As most of you know, NP has been planning improvements to the plant for a lot of years now. To replace, again, the plant's 1973 technology is still functioning, we're still making permits, but it needs to be upgraded back. And also to modernize the plant for better nitrogen removal and additional capacity during that drought. The project has been dormant since 2015. For ugly old history, the 100% design plans were submitted to DEEP in October, I think, of 14. And they changed the floodplain regulations in early 2015 and still said we were responsible to change the plan, which was a significant design modification. And it unfortunately lay dormant since then. We are now trying to get to the design plan specifications to a shovel-ready condition. We have been told that the Clean Water funding is available. We have the priority points. We simply have to get the design done. This ordinance is required. The appropriation of $2.75 million for the project. It includes multiple things that we paid for out of the $2.75 million. The biggest chunk is for the design, the upgrade of the design, which includes the basis of design report. Without a basis of design reports, you're not eligible for federal or state funding. We have submitted a report and it was approved on 12/12/2020, which then kicked off the design of the plant. The design contract for the plant was approved by DEEP on 6/4/2021. The new design is again for raising everything up to the new floodplain elevations, designing for a peak flow that we can actually handle in wet weather of 20 MPD. Brand new building codes in the last easily 10 years, changes in current technology for better nitrogen removal, And environmental issues that have come out recently as far as PCBs. Also, construction bidding services, it's a pretty big undertaking, very large job to bid, having engineering help and review of all the bids that come in as part of this, as well as legal support for any type of local bids. So, schedule and next steps, request approval of the ordinance from the City Council in September. We have, next step was 60% design plans. We have received those this week. We are reviewing them. A staff will be sent up to deep. Will they comment on them? We are going to bug them until they comment on them that they normally do. But we're going to have them. And we will stay on the schedule that was promised to the city. 90% plans submitted by 11/2/21, 100% plans by 12/16. And we plan to submit the whole package to DEEP by the end of the calendar year, asking for approval to advertise this project for bids. Assuming we get responses back. The biggest comments should come in the basis of design while you're doing it. The other comments should be hopefully innocuous as we go through this thing, but we shall see. And again, in the plan is to advertise for bids in early 2021 for construction, really late summer, certainly before fall of 22. But once the design is complete and you have 100% approval, and then you are told you can bid the project, then we can apply for reimbursement on all monies spent through a combination of loan.
Is that a typo or
Which one?
the advertised for bids in early 2021? I mean,
I apologize, that should be 22.
yeah, okay, that's fine.
No, that's me, early 22, and under construction. And then also, if we have a shovel-ready project, is pursue additional our grant construction bill opportunities. So we can offset some of the costs of the loan portion going up to the project. Any questions on that presentation, or how much you ever heard before?
Are the people aware of our aggressive schedule here?
Yes, they have. That schedule was submitted to them as part of the basis of the design report and as part of the engineering contract.
Yeah, and Bill, I have personal conversations with Nisha and as well, and she has been very responsive all the way through, this process, since she's become involved.
Good. We were in contact with them fairly recently, that kind of nudged them along.
And so help me out, because believe me, I'm an amateur here, but my understanding is that we used to be able to allow excessive water to go into the river 80 times a year, and now it's going to be down to 8 times a year in the future?
Yeah, it's based on what they call a level of control.
Yep.
Where the expenses, right now, we are about, roughly every 6 months, we will have releases to the river, varying sizes, depending on intensity. But they want roughly one release every 2 years.
Yep.
The storm we're getting tomorrow, no matter what we're gonna do, you get 4 to 6 inches of rain in 7 hours. You're gonna, no matter what town you are, you're gonna have releases. So, but they want, it's the half-inch rain, the 1 inch rain stays in the system, gets treated. That's the stuff they're looking for.
But I mean, I think it's important to understand, particularly with the mayor here, who's the head of economic development in Norwich, that not only is this an important environmental step that we're taking, and it's a step that we're taking because we have to, we're enjoying to do it as well. But it's going to dramatically improve the quality of water in Norwich Harbor.
Absolutely, undoubtedly will change. Certainly along the surface structure in Carl, without doubt. The Antic doesn't have any CSOs, but yes, it will have absolutely changed. Dramatically.
And will allow, if a new business comes in, we have capacity to plan to serve that as well. That's also very important.
Great. All right, well, thank you very much. Do we have any other questions?
Oh, Larry's got one more to talk about.
That's the new one.
And this one here is not as positive, but I think we're gonna have a good outcome in the end.
So, I wish I had a better map to show the picture of, sometimes the picture's worth a thousand words. So, South Main Street, Cove Street, Force Main. South Main Street pump station. If you go past the police station's on the left-hand side, where some condos are. That pump station takes all the flow from like east side of Dunn Street all the way down to Allen Chevrolet, for lack of a better word, that whole east side. That is a combined system. That first main is a 12-inch cast iron force main installed in 1973. pumping rip stands for the last 50 years. The main, it's at least 10 times in the last decade, we've been digging up Route 32. And force main, to be honest, useful life is no different than the River Avenue force main, which we had fixed 2 years ago. Bottom stuff, it's just going to be worn out by the river over years. Cove Street force main. Cove Street pump station is directly across the North firehouse. You see the tiny little building tucked down in the grass. That takes all the flow from Route 82. All the pump stations of Route 82, all the development goes to that pump station. Back in the 70s, they tied the South Same Street force main into that force main. It just made that force main bigger. So basically, the west side of Norwich all goes through this force main. It's a 60-inch force main, 1973. That goes north, cuts across the utility bridge, under the tracks, over utility bridge, onto the plant property. If you give me 2 seconds, if you take a look at the map, it's not great for everybody to see, but if you come up after and take a look. South Main Street pump station, all down Route 33. The dash lines where the force main now is in the road. That's the Cove Street pump station here. They connect. They go northwest, under the tracks, utility bridge on the west branch of the annex, and connect to the piping system that's located on the plant. On August 5th, about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we had a pretty, we had a break in the main. If you look at this piece of the pipe that goes under the tracks, it's 85 feet long. It's a 16-inch pipe inside of a 48-inch brick culvert with a manhole on each end. The pipe broke somewhere inside that 85-foot culvert, filled that culvert up, and it's coming out of the manhole. We were able to take the top off the manhole. If you flick a slide, Steve, it actually, you can kind of see a picture of the manhole at the end of the pipe. We were able to contain the flow there. We had our own pump. We sent a temporary 6-inch line across the bridge into the plant, so we were able to maintain the flow there. As we were investigating that, the 16-inch main had another break on it on the bridge going over the Annick River, plus the 12-inch main broke out inside of Cove Street, right in the middle of the road. So at that point in time, it's the finger in the dike analogy. Plug it here, it pushes the pressure over here, and it just keeps breaking and breaking. The same thing happened on the river. So bypassing the existing force mains was the only option at that point in time. So that night on the 5th, 1,300 linear feet of a 12-inch force main was installed from the Cove Street force main all the way to the influence channel at the plant, and 3,900 feet 8-inch main was installed from South Main Street pump station along the tracks, under the tracks, over the bridge up to the influence channel. It was a really difficult installation. If you're working with the tracks, you had to get a river crossing. It was nighttime. It was an incredible group effort. I mean, it wasn't just the underground guys or the super crews. We had linemen showing up, field service guys. They literally carried, 5,500 feet of pipe up and down the tracks on their shoulders, putting it together. So by 2 a.m. on Sunday night, both stations were bypassed. The other main was abandoned in place, and you can see where they were. We did have to move. They couldn't be that close to the tracks. This railroad was fantastic to work with, unlike what we went on the street with the water main break. These guys were fairly accommodating. They understood the gravity of the situation, so we are forcing it around river property way off the side of the tracks now. If anything, we'll be there until we get prepared. So we signed a contract with Jacobs, who was the engineer who rehabilitated the River Avenue force main. They are experts in the field as far as lining force mains. We just signed a contract with them. We will have 30% of those designs complete in October, 9% plans complete in November. Permitting will be done by December. This is the hardest part because you have local wetlands on this Long Island Sound. The annex is title at that point in time. The railroad is still the railroad for the permits. Getting underneath those tracks, can we still use the old culvert? We have to put up 500. A lot of questions and comment too. It's supposed to be paved with 32. We're trying to almost have a paving with 32 to figure out. So advertising construction bids in January. Hopefully work March. So what the costs are of that mania.
Did you say that you're going to replace or going to reline that force main?
We're thinking of relining. It makes a lot of sense to reline because it's a pretty straight shot all the way up to where it just then most likely direct dig, because there's some jogs in the pipe, because it used to be, I think, the railroad used to run out of it, but it used to be 4 or 5 sets of tracks.
Mhm.
In the main, we jogged with concrete and case, but it's not a great, this chunk is not really a good candidate for line.
Okay.
It's simply direct dig. We still have to figure out, should we have 2 mains going across, 1 main, where to connect them, and if you can't just join pipe together like they did, you should have valving chambers, so you can isolate things, and also we're gonna do it the right way, just not sure where.
Okay. So when you line that main, are you losing diameter?
Very little, right now it's 12 inch, you can go down to just over 11 inches, not even 3/4 inch.
And that's a,
What with a line?
But with a flex through the line, so you actually lose no hydraulic power.
oh, really?
Yeah.
So is that a pipe inside of a pipe, or is that like a,
It's a pipe inside of a pipe. It's a felt liner with like a heavy duty PVC. It's not PVC is the right word, they have a term for it. It's actually pushed and inverted in.
yeah,
It gets inflated with
you
pressure.
expand it,
The
yeah?
pipe that it adheres to is nothing more than like forms of pouring concrete. If you can remove the old pipe after it, it serves no purpose. It's just a form for that.
No kidding.
Years.
Wow,
That new pipe has a 50-year life capacity with the same strength rating as the pipe.
wow, nice.
And it cures, pipe that long, take about 12 to 14 hours to cure that pipe. If you use UV or steam, they'll cure that pipe and it's hardly, and that felt liner with the resin insurance. Constructive pipe. And the PVC actually is a better material than the ductile iron for like abrasive. Because the PVC has a bounce factor where ductile iron, cast iron, like you ping a hammer against cast iron, you'll see a dent, it doesn't have PVC.
I got you. Okay, nice.
So we obviously have to do this, but, do we have a funding plan for this, or is this coming from the overall sewer project?
So this is coming from, the overall sewer project, or the, the ones we have money set aside for that. But we also have this in our list of projects, and, Steve will go over that a little later in the presentation. So if a funding opportunity arises, we are ready to go. It's in our list of projects we want to get done.
No idea what it's gonna cost them.
Got it, $3 million. It's complicated.
The discharges to the intake, as a result of the break.
Yes, there were discharges, and it's all reported to SSO, it's completely unavoidable. Discharges, we didn't know about it until it was discharged to the end. You could hear the flow from our plant, and the guys were running out there like, oh boy. That's good. No, we could contain that fairly fast, it was reported as business, and these do happen,
But, the project is going to address some of these other force mains, the force main from Rose Alley and items like that. We just haven't got there quite quick enough. When it's 50 years, can you go 51 years or 52 years or 53 years, right? We know we need to do them all. And I think the biggest thing we say about this, getting this back into an operational state and allowing us to design and fix it in a planned fashion is the effort it took. This was in a heat wave, and, Larry says, I need help, and this was like a storm, all hands on deck kind of scenario. And as he said, maintenance mechanics, I showed up at the scene and I see a field service guy who normally fixes boilers out there with a piece of pipe on his shoulder. It's like, wow, I was impressed that this just happened organically. Everybody, how do I help? Where do I show up? What do I do? And great team effort, and Larry and his team did a great job of getting this done as quickly in extremely hot conditions.
Most impressively, he was able to talk about this publicly after it took step up the room.
All right, so we do have action items here. The first is a motion to approve the sewer plant upgrade design funding ordinance, which you mentioned early on in your presentation. Do we have such a motion?
No, I think the motion approves the funding ordinance for the sewer plant upgrade design.
All right, we have a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. It's unanimous. And the second action item is a motion to approve the debt policy resolution. I will say I'm a little confused about what that is. So, Chris, could you maybe elaborate just a little?
Yeah, so Laura's got a little presentation on this, and
I'll hand these out on the, do you have presentation? No, okay. So the debt management policy, this is a policy that we talked about the last two finance audit committee meetings and the last board meeting. We went through this in detail. What we have in front of you is actually two resolutions, one for the board and one for the sewer authority.
Do we have to make a motion on that $350,000 allocation to the last project that I just spoke about, the Oak Street?
No, we don't, no. First of all, we don't have any funding in place for that, Bill. And second of all, we don't know, until we get the bid package and the engineer's estimate, we don't know exactly what it's gonna be. So, we already had an RFP for the engineer. And so that there's gonna come out of sewer operating funds.
Okay.
You're on.
Sure. So in 2020, we had early discussions in regards to a line of credit. After going through a lot of review and analysis and working with our legal counsel, it was directed that we should have a debt management policy that was comprehensive, that would allow us to access a line of credit and put the framework in place for that. So the finance team drafted a comprehensive policy with input from our bond counsel, the treasurer, the comptroller, several of our advisors, including the rate consultant and the financial advisor. And we have gone over that. It was presented for review to the Finance and Audit Committee, and then there was two in-depth presentations, Finance and Audit Committee and the board meeting. And what you have in front of you is a resolution to adopt that policy for the sewer authority and for the
So, I mean, this is a little complex, or at least long.
Well, so the reason it is so long, what you have in front of you is long, is because there's two copies of everything. The cover letter has the resolution for the board, and then it has the policy. That same policy we walked through section by section at the last board meeting. When we went through with the Finance and Audit Committee meeting, we got some feedback from the board. Mike, you had some comments that we needed to make sure this is clear by division, we added that in. And then we went through it section by section with the board at the last meeting, and this goes over all the different pieces of a debt management strategy.
But this is fundamentally to.
For the board to approve that policy.
Or specifically to, talk about a standby line of credit, is that right?
This will allow us to move forward with that standby line of credit process.
Okay.
We did go through some pretty detail last week.
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
I don't think anything changed.
Nope, nothing changed.
Disclosures.
Sean?
You have a question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, no, I was listening to,
No problem.
sorry, I was listening to one.
Well, as most of you know, standby line of credit has been one of my pet projects for the last 4 years. And I think it makes all the sense in the world. I think if the treasurer solicits interest from local or area banks, I think their typical policy has been, particularly with customers like the city of Norwich that does other financings with them, to not charge a standby fee, to simply charge a fee if the money is drawn. And it improves our overall reserves. So, I mean, I would certainly encourage us to do that. The CMEC currently has some standby lines of credit with Wells Fargo and Bank of America, I believe. And they each charge 45, 50 basis points a year for the standby provision. And then if you actually use the money, they charge more for that. I don't think that's the best idea in the world if it can be avoided, but they have a bigger appetite. You know, there are other factors involved. But I think this is a good thing to do. I think that it essentially increases our reserves. If we need an emergency influx of money, we have that in place. We don't have to go through a lot of procedures and go to, let's say, go to council or go to other things to get the money. We have it, we can draw on it, so we don't need to, go through a lot of process. And secondly, we probably don't have to draw down our equity as much as, or our reserve fund, as much as we might otherwise have to do. Although it's going to be a individualized decision at any point in time, whether you want to draw down the reserve, which, costs us nothing. Although potentially there's an opportunity cost because it's not going to be invested. Or alternately, do we want to draw down the standby line of credit? But that's a decision, you all can make at the time depending on the circumstances. So I think this is terrific.
A situation like Larry just described, that's, not necessarily for this, but if we had a major catastrophic storm, for instance, then we may be in a different situation because our customers aren't able to pay their bills because they have no infrastructure and
That's right.
their businesses are closed. That's when it really would be very helpful, or other items where we have catastrophic events.
For something like you had mentioned, a storm, we had a significant major catastrophic event, and there was FEMA funds available. There is a significant time lag for those funds to show up, so we would potentially have the opportunity to use the line of credit, cover all of those expenses, knowing that dollars are coming in the future to pay that loan back when that happens. And that would put us in a fairly good financial position to make that decision at that time.
Yes. So I presume the finance committee approved this.
Yes.
So do we have a motion to approve the?
I just had one quick,
Question?
Yes.
I had one quick question, and I wasn't part of the finance committee, I'm sorry. Under 5A and B, those ratios of 1.7 and 4, are those industry standard?
Those are from Moody's rating agency, and that would be the AA, the AA rating. That's why we selected those.
Okay.
Well, what we did is the city's rating, whatever the city's rating was, we're going to use the same methodologies
Yeah, same
in case
metrics.
we were rated someday, which we may want to float revenue bond someday.
Okay.
We'd be rated at least equal to the city.
All right.
That's the same question I asked. For an engineer, you.
There you go. I do what I can,
Sure.
All right, do we have any other questions?
Yeah, I do think that, the line of credit is definitely necessary, for any business, to be able to cover those things. I just had a question in regards to the financial term of 7A. Is it an automatic fixed interest rate already that you've already approved of already? Or something that's determined, on the amount of debt that we borrow?
Let me make sure I'm looking at that.
We haven't actually went out and obtained the line of credit yet.
Sure.
This policy will allow us to do that.
Sure.
And so it will all depend on what the market is at the time.
Okay.
But a fixed interest rate is the preferred, interest rate.
As opposed to looking at something variable, where we would potentially have risk, and want to minimize that risk to NTU and therefore to our customers.
Understood. Excuse me, because it could be interest only, as well too, so I just wanted to see if you guys look into the fixed interest rates or other variables at that time.
All right, we believe we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Board or the sewer authority?
Huh?
Is that for the board or the sewer authority?
Do we have to?
Oh, we have to do both, I'm
Start
sorry.
with the board, yeah.
For the Board of Commissioners, do we have a motion to accept policy?
Which one, the sewer?
No, we'll do the Board.
We did one, okay, I'm sorry.
We're going to do the Board of Commissioners first. Do we have a motion to accept the debt policy for the Board of Commissioners, for electric, gas, and water?
So,
A second, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. And now the sewer authority, same policy, do we have a motion to accept the policy for the sewer authority?
So moved.
We have a first and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Again, it's unanimous.
Yeah, both. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So with that, the next steps will be to start preparing an RFP and getting that out to solicit bids for the line of credit.
Terrific. Okay, the next item potentially is approval of the revision of the electric and gas rates as proposed in the public hearing. Do I assume that includes the economic development?
Absolutely.
Rate too?
That rate hearing covered both items, and that's one resolution.
All right, do I have a motion to approve both the revision of the electric and gas rates and the economic development rate? Do we have a second?
Second?
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It is unanimous once again. Thank you very much. The next item is strategic presentations. There are two strategic presentations tonight. The public Wi-Fi update and the natural gas supply forecast. The first is the public Wi-Fi update.
All right, we just got to wait for John to run from the IT office into here. He should be here. He was right there. Where'd he go?
He's back.
He's quick.
You like take their answers.
Good evening. Good evening. Glad to be back and give you an update on what we're doing with the public Wi-Fi project. If you could hit the next slide, please, sir. So the devices have been delivered. If you look in our area outside my cubicle, we've got them all lined up on the table that's out there. Those have finally come in. We received the structure boxes to get them mounted. We got those last Friday. We've been going through to make sure that they're all configured. We're doing bench testing on the devices. They are ready to go. Right now, we're in the process of doing the installation in the field. South Golden Street is live, Otis Street Library is live, Howard Brown Park are all live sites where you can see CP public Wi-Fi if you live down there right now. We're doing priority installs over the next several weeks to get these devices open and active in the community. Some cases we're looking at alternate sites because of constraints on the individual poles. We may move the device by maybe a block from what we initially planned, but it'll still be in the same neighborhood. They're already active in providing access. You can log into the public Wi-Fi right from this room right now, and they were extremely helpful during the storm preparation there. During the EOC, we were able to use that device to access the internet. Next slide, please. So that's a quick graphic to show you how you can log in. If you look on your phone or you look on your laptop right now, you should see a network called CP Public Wi-Fi. If you select that, it's going to bring you to the screen you see that's to the right. That is a web portal where it will ask you to agree to the terms and conditions, and then you're in. You don't have to log in with any kind of credentials. You don't have to set up an account. You don't need a credit card. It is click anywhere in the internet. Next slide, please. So this is the list of the locations that we'll be doing the installs. We're kind of going through now and trying to prioritize on which ones we can get done quickly. In some cases, we may have to do more infrastructure work to make those locations viable. But these are for the pilot project. We have 12 locations that have been identified for public access to CP-Wi. Next one, please. And then this is just in the slide deck some more information that we had earlier on in the project about the CEN program, the governor's bill, Middletown's instructions. Those are just going to be there for background information. So with that, if you do want to try logging in, I highly recommend doing it. It came in extremely helpful during the storm, and we're making progress. Any questions?
How many neighborhoods will this system serve versus how many neighborhoods are not going to be served by it?
I don't have that number for you. It's about a 2-city block radius around the device itself.
Okay.
And we have 12 locations, so that'll be a rough estimate for where they're going to go. These are pretty populated areas, with maybe the exception of this building. So they will reach, I don't know how many locations we're going to be able to reach.
So this is the pilot. This is phase one.
Yep.
If this is successful, There's the opportunity to go for additional infrastructure money or ARP money from the city to expand this beyond. So this is not the be-all and end-all of where Wi-Fi is going to go, but this is, you know, once again, let's try it, let's learn. We're using CEN to put all these in, and then we can look at other resources, city or federal, to expand this into other areas in the city.
We'll say, when I was at the NEPA conference, I did brag about us being one of the few people that have free public Wi-Fi. So it was a talking point that I want at NPU and Adams, but I just wanted to tell you, I think you might have set off a trend for some other people to look into having public Wi-Fi, so I just want to share that with you.
Excellent, thank you.
And I did log in, and it works very, very well.
Excellent. Any other questions?
No, I don't think so.
I don't know. I'm not sure where the state program is going, what we would do with it, so on and so forth. I think, first things first is finding out is there a marketplace? Are the people going to use it? I think that's one of the things we hope to learn from the pilot program, as well as. So how will we getting the word out to the folks? Well, there have been news articles that are out there. There's been a couple of news stations that ran.
I do have one question. Will we, I know that it's free Wi-Fi, I'm not sure if I asked this question before, but, and that was a pilot, so you don't have to have all the answers, but will we throttle people when it comes to a certain bandwidth to make sure that we're able to keep, people connected and people not having to bounce off?
Yeah, it is metered and throttled, so as people are on a particular connection, if one device is starting to just overwhelm the connection, it will throttle that back so that you can balance the load to all people of that particular amount. That's built into the software.
Okay, no problem.
And it's also filtered for content.
Oh, okay, no problem. So it allows certain websites to be blocked, so you just can't access anything whatsoever, correct?
Right, and, it follows, we did this through CEN, and they follow the same kind of filtering concept that they would put in, say, a high school or a library.
Yeah, okay.
That's the kind of thing you see there, you shouldn't see that on the street.
Very good. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much.
The next item is natural gas supply forecast.
All right, Steve's going to have a presentation on this, and I think as Sean and the people at CMEC have seen, natural gas prices are going up, but there is also some extra value for our pipeline capacity, and Steve will go into the details of both.
All right, thanks, Chris. Okay, I'm just going to go back to our earlier forecast that we did in the spring. Our gas expense forecast had indicated at that time that there was huge potential to lower the PGA come November 1st. And that's when we're doing our first rate increase to our gas rates as part of this 3-year rate track. And we're hoping to sort of do it, coincide those two things. We've continued to analyze that on a monthly basis to determine the impact to those initial indications. And unfortunately, in the last 60 days, natural gas markets have somewhat rallied. And the forecast now show an increase in gas costs compared to our April analysis, and it's caused by several factors, which I'll explain on the next page. Really in two areas. It's in areas of pipeline reservation charges and in commodity pricing. Last month, the Texas Eastern Interstate Pipeline Company, which is the pipeline that runs from the Gulf of Mexico up to the Pennsylvania-New Jersey border and interconnects with the Algonquin pipeline that comes up into this area, they announced a rate increase, and that's projected to be effective in February of 2022. That would be a $352,000 annual increase to our annual reservation charges on that pipeline. Interestingly enough, they did a rate increase back in 2019 as well, and this is a Canadian company that bought, it was Spectra Energy, now it's Enbridge. They bought the company within the last 4 or 5 years. The previous rate case that was done was in 1992 by Spectra and what was Duke Energy before that. So from 1992 to 2019, we didn't have any rate increases. The Canadian company bought the company in 2015, and we've had now 2 rate increases in the last 5 years. It's based on, capital improvements that they have to do to modernize the system, and also has a lot to do with cast iron and bare steel main replacements, which we're also undergoing here. This is all subject to FERC approval, but the way the process works is they announce that they want to increase rates. If FERC doesn't take action, the rates go into place within 6 months regardless, subject to when it does get FERC approval, they can basically, if it's more, they can charge us more. If it's less, they'll give us a credit back. But the rates are going into effect. With regard to commodity pricing, NYMEX futures have increased 33%. From our previous calculated average of $2.96 to $3.95. Last year, during the same time, we were in the sub $2 range. Really, they're saying that has to do a lot with COVID, with production was shut down during COVID. Demand is increasing now, but they're not looking at these long-term price signals to get production back online. So there is truly a supply and demand issue that's impacting that. In addition, Algonquin Citygate pricing, which is the pipeline that's in our area, has increased from an average of $6.75 a decatherm to $10.26. That's a 52% increase. And that's just for the winter period. One of the big things impacting that is the LNG markets, which are averaging $19 a decatherm through the winter period compared to $10 historically. Right now, the Northeast relies very heavily on LNG imports to inject that LNG into the pipeline itself because a lot of pipeline expansion projects that were planned over the last 10 years were not allowed to be built. So they're importing the LNG into places like Nova Scotia, injecting the gas in there, and then bringing it down the Maritimes pipeline into Boston area and into Algonquin area down here in Connecticut. Just to give an indication of what that has as an impact, let me see if that laser pointer works here. There we are. Okay. This is our gas cost that was forecasted back in April, and this is our gas forecast that was recently forecasted in July. 2 areas. One, pipeline reservation charge, pipelines that we work on. There's the $146,000 increase for fiscal year 22. That's a $352,000 over that, the February to June time period. And the biggest impact is in the commodity area, and that's a $1.3 million increase in costs. So 2.5% on overall reservation charges and 42% increase in commodity costs. The bulk of the increase, interestingly enough, so if we're looking at a total increase of $1.4 million, over the summer months alone, it's $1.1 million. So from November to March, which is our winter time period, that's the bulk of where we're going to see that increase. That's interesting. So, what is the impact on this on the PGA? Natural gas expenses are obviously recovered through the purchase gas adjustment. If gas costs go down, the PGA can be lowered. If gas costs go up, the PGA can be need to be increased. We're going to continue to review these market conditions through September and calculate the required PGA for November 1st implementation. And we're going to present the results of that at the September board meeting. We were hoping that we're going to decrease it from 27 cents to about half that. That's definitely not going to be achievable. We're hoping to at least maintain where it is now, so we won't have to increase it. But we're going to continue to calculate that over the next month. We're also taking some mitigation steps, or we're looking at the mitigation steps. One is we have an option in our current gas supply contract with our current supplier to exercise an option for an additional year of service. We typically do that during the spring and summer time period. We have talked with them to see if we could exercise that option now, since the market is up. Because it's up, that could increase the value of our assets. And we're looking at potentially doing that now instead of in the spring, and that could increase our AMA payment by $400,000 annually. If we do that now, they may allow us to take advantages of that in November, because that's when the new contract would go in place. So we may be able to use that to our advantage and be able to lower the PGA potentially, but not quite to where we were. Another mitigation step we're looking at is recovering these higher gas costs over a longer period of time while maintaining our recommended cash reserves. We typically look at trying to maintain, recover costs over a 1-year period. That's the period that we would actually expend the money, but we could extend it out to 18 and 24 months as long as we can maintain those reserves. And there's high likelihood like this, like where we would know what our AMA payment would be over that period of time. We would be able to do that over a longer period of time. So we're also going to continue to closely monitor the market conditions, adjust our models as necessary. But again, we'll know what the impact to the PGA by the end of September, the board meeting in September. I wish I had better news, but any questions?
37 cents or 27 cents a PGA?
27.
27.
Yeah.
Is that still cheaper than oil?
Well, oil's going up in the last week.
Well, okay, I'm just saying, as a comparison, as a comparison, maybe the September meeting, or I can call you, jot that down.
Yep.
Because I know for a long time, gas was a little bit more expensive than oil. Back when oil was selling for under $1. But in the last 5 years or so, gas has been a lot less expensive than oil.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the benchmark that I use to see.
If you look at historical, Steve actually provided this, the historical chart of gas back when we were doing expansion and everything. There are very, very short anomalies when oil's under $1, which is not normal, where it may be slightly greater, but the rest of the time it's well under. It's just a question of how much.
So and you said you hope to keep it at 27, but it went up. I'm just curious where we are relative to oil today.
Okay, based on the 27?
Yeah.
Yep, okay.
Yep. Well, I think what you're getting out of Steve's presentation, if nothing else, is we're back to a volatile
yes, we are.
Gas market, where it was very stable for many years.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, our assets, which were worth nothing 2 years ago, are now very valuable again for our pipeline capacity.
There's a huge interest in or need for LNG around the world, and that's a world market, and that's impacting our domestic pricing. We have an abundance of natural gas in this country, but we have no way of getting it to market, or minimal ways.
Maybe if we could tap into that Russian pipeline in Germany.
We don't have LNG capacity in this country to get gas out, but we import LNG?
We're importing LNG into the pipeline.
Sure, but we don't make LNG here.
We do. We do. Actually, over the last several years, back 10 years ago, Alan Greenspan, it was before, over 10 years ago, Alan Greenspan announced that LNG was our future. They built they started building a number of importing facilities for LNG, and then Marcellus Shale was discovered.
Oh, right.
And they had to mothball all these huge billion-dollar projects. What they've done since then is they're trying to convert a lot of those importing facilities into exporting facilities. And what's happening happening now is a lot of that Marcellus shale is getting shipped down to Texas. So the opposite way of the gas used to flow to the exporting facilities down there. And they're actually, so they're selling that gas into a world market. So we have to compete with that as well. The interesting thing is you can't send the Marcellus shale to Texas, put it on a tanker, and bring it up to New England and inject it. That's not allowed. Because you can't export and then import to the United States with the same. I don't know what the rules are, but it's just interesting the way it works. So that was an update on where we are in things.
All right, based on the numbers you put up there, LNG is more expensive to take the gas out of the pipe, right? Is that what you're showing? It was like 19?
Correct.
And that's per decatherm?
Per decatherm.
Okay.
It was historically around $10 on average.
Yeah.
But right now there's a worldwide need for it. So it's just, it goes to the highest bidder. There's some countries that just, their natural gas system runs 100% on liquid natural gas.
I can believe that, but we're importing $19 gas into this country when we can produce it ourselves for, $4.
Correct. Because we can't get the gas from Marcellus.
It's a pipeline problem.
It's a pipeline problem. Yeah. Pipeline constraints.
Now, has that been exacerbated by the fact that New York State has passed a law not allowing any gas pipelines to be built in New York State, which obviously...
Anything that involves fracking, right?
Yeah, New York, Massachusetts, there was some expansion projects in Massachusetts, in Hampshire. That was canceled. A number of pipeline expansions were canceled because of that.
Yeah, it was a good thing we got in early on buying the additional capacity because that is paying off very well for us right now. And we have more than adequate supply where we were always working on needing our LNG plant for those peaking days. Now it's a luxury, it's not a requirement.
Exactly. In addition, our LNG supply for our own plant, we get out of Pennsylvania, and that's priced a lot lower than the imported LNG.
Just truck versus put on a ship and send.
So here's a long-term strategic question. What's the future of gas?
So a lot of the presentations were discussing that, and it's very solid for the next 20 to 30 years. And then hydrogen, in all likelihood, will take over in the power plant industry, and electrification will be significantly more in the residential. But those pipelines and gas facilities may also be used for hydrogen, and who knows where hydrogen will be. So I think our infrastructure has got a strong future for 20 to 30, if not significantly more, if we can utilize it for hydrogen.
All right, any other questions? All right, we will move on then to the American Rescue Plan and federal infrastructure investment.
Okay, Laura, Laura will be back up at the podium for this one.
Okay, so infrastructure investment, our ARPA and legislative funding, infrastructure funding program. So next slide, please. So currently we have over $220 million in shovel-ready projects that we'd like to use to leverage any funding for. So in the gas division, we have $19 million for the project. That's the cast iron and barrier steel main replacement, about 13 miles of main that needs to be replaced. Our gas expansion to Preston Riverwalk, and the Route 12 and Route 32 gas main and in the electric division, looking at a $14 million project. The installation of the 34.5 kV line to the Preston Riverwalk, and the Greenville Dam improvement. And the water division, $20 million for the project, replacing the lead and copper services, which is a mandated program. The Groton Norwich emergency interconnect, the Deep River and Stoneburg gatehouse repairs, the isolation valve replacement, the painting and overhaul, and the business park and Richard Brown tank aeration program. For the sewer division, the $170 million project, including the upgrades to the wastewater treatment plant infrastructure and the CSO improvements, again, additional mandated projects. And as you heard from Larry, the South Thames and Cove Street Force Main renewal. Next slide, please.
Here's a quick question.
Sure.
The Preston River one, that's in Norwich, right?
Norwich State Hospital in Preston.
Yes.
It's in the Preston Park?
There's the 40 acres in Norwich was turned over to a private developer. The rest of the property owned by Preston getting turned over to Mohegan Sun.
Okay, so we're able to put electricity on that property,
We serve that property now, and we'll be competing for electric at that property.
even though it's not Norwich property?
Correct, it's contiguous to Norwich, and we're fed through Norwich, so we can serve that site, but it will be competitive. Eversource has served the site and can serve the site, so that'll be, between Eversource and NPU as to what is chosen at that site.
Between Eversource and NPU? I don't get it. I mean, how about the customer? Don't they decide which one they want?
Exactly, that's,
Oh, they're gonna decide between say NPU.
yeah, we don't decide for the Mohegan Sun decides for the property.
All right.
And we have exclusive rights to the gas.
Yes, we do?
State law, the franchise area.
Yeah.
Yeah, sewer, we're the only, town that can take it through sewer, and water, that's something where, depending on the amount of water needed at that site, we may partner with Groton on that, like we did for the Mohegan Sun on the other side of the river.
Yes, I was kind of wondering about that. In terms of the electric large commercial, economic development rate, would that apply to an out-of-town development? You see what I'm saying, like, the Preston Rural Water? Yeah, there was a large corporation, I wonder, would we offer that benefit even though they're outside of the Norwich corporate line?
So, it's one of those where I think that we might need the attorneys to look at that one a little bit.
Absolutely.
So I think we'll get back to you on that, Bill.
I just want to ask, Franklin, are there any, like businesses in the industrial
If
park?
consumer interstate expands in the back, then we would likely serve that property, and it would be a Franklin property served by Norwich. Every town has that road that's partially served by one town, and the rest of it, and it just continues on over the town line and finish the rest of the road, for instance. So there's a lot of small things, but there's those two places where a large development could happen.
Yeah, I think that even Boston, for example, Long Beach too. I mean, that could happen. Especially on that too.
Boston Light Power serves it right to the town line.
Okay.
But coming up from your way, was it the Warwick Hill that comes up and down?
Yeah.
There may be a piece of that that's in Boston that's fed by Norwich. Without looking at it, there's a possibility there. But like, Optimus, definitely, served all by Bosworth for electric.
Speaking of Boswell Farm, in the past, kicked around was trying to acquire Boswell Farm because logistically.
Yeah, so Mike, that's an executive session discussion, and I'm happy to address it there.
Okay, thank you.
So an example of our ongoing emissions, we have the gas division, $13.6 million approximately. We're working with APGA on direct funding opportunities through the proposed infrastructure bill. And that would accelerate our DIM, or Distribution Integrity Management Program. This replaces the existing cast iron and bare steel pipes with state-of-the-art pipes, and that increases the integrity and the overall safety of the distribution system. We're also exploring funding opportunities for meter relocation from inside a building to outside, again, with a focus on safety. However, in this area, we do have some challenges. Material lead times have increased dramatically. Regulators are looking at 40 weeks on those, risers 50 weeks, and the 1-inch HDPE service tubing production has been halted until December. So all of these are challenges that we're going to have to manage as we move forward with any of these projects. Next slide, please.
Oh, just one additional thing on that. They're talking about 100% funding, which is unheard of, and also includes the paving. So if that goes forward as proposed, this would be an unbelievable windfall for us. And we're always concerned about doing gas replacements in conjunction with public works to make sure we're giving them the road when they're ready to pave it. This says we can pave the road, at any time. So it takes away that financial constraint, and we can get it done much quicker.
With 100% funding, you would be supplanting your dollars as opposed to supplementing. It makes your dollars go farther, which is always a win for us and our customers. Broadband investment, another focus area, as you heard from John, we continue to focus on that. We're monitoring the ever-evolving landscape of broadband. Technology just continues to change. We currently have the DEN partnership for the free Wi-Fi, as John gave us the update. The future build-out or expansion of that would require a dedicated resource, otherwise known as an overbuild. And we're partnering with CTC Technology and Energy to examine grant opportunities that could underwrite that project. Successful application does need detailed cost analysis and engineering documents. We're working with CTC on developing that effort. And we'll continue to keep you updated as things change within that fiber area and any grant opportunities that are available. Next slide, please. Additional ARPA initiatives, government support. There's a program currently in development with Norwich Community Services that would provide customers utility payment assistance, and this would be up to $1,200 per customer in ARPA assistance. And we always work closely with Norwich Community Services on any programs that we can collaborate on for the benefit of our customers.
Yeah, so last night they had the last public hearing on this round of funding for ARP, and it'll be in front of the city council on.
That's changed.
Oh, okay, since last night it changed, okay.
Well, my colleagues on the council have set up two virtual, tomorrow's 5:30 to 6:30, people can call in, I can get you the information, the Zoom link if you want to participate.
I would like to listen to
They're doing that on Saturday. Rose City United has another couple in the Copper Brown Park. There's another one, 2:30 to 4 o'clock on Sunday, another virtual or Zoom link that Joe and other members of council set up. They've invited the public, they haven't invited me, which I don't quite understand, but I'm going anyway. And I notified John, told him about it, that I gave him the information. You know, we're sending it out to everybody else on the council, I don't know. It just came up last night after that. They put it together and released it. So there are 3 more opportunities for more testimony to be heard. It's fine. Questioning of the order of things that are being done is not changed. And it is what it is.
Still on the agenda for September 7th?
As far as it is.
Okay. Yep.
Yes. Yeah, we went over that Monday. Yes.
So Peter, if I can ask, does it look like there's going to be a big change in what the city manager planned to do, or is this just
There may be more additions, but I don't understand is some of my colleagues seem to ignore the fact this is only round 1 of year 1.
Yep.
And it's not the final vote in year 1. There's still another almost $5 million unallocated. Now, there are significant issues that we need to address, like the radio systems for all fire departments citywide and stuff like that. I know we're looking at doing that over year 1 and year 2. That's about a $50 million hit alone. And there's some other issues out there, but I worry about the funds within CDC. I think there's a push somewhere on that side that wants to either limit the dollars, or even to remove them all, which I think is a big mistake. We want to be there with code compliance grants to help businesses. I mean, we've got a important business looking to expand downtown. That fund has to be there to stop that project. And they're already in place with their local funding. Contingent on the city's commitment, which is already, it's already a project, everybody knows about it. I don't know why they decided, I mean, John can ignore us all, do what he wants. Treasury's office, the way the legislation written, he doesn't need our approval for a dime. He was trying to work with everybody, you know, keep communication going the right way. If something's proposed that's, you know, shouldn't be in there, he knows he's going to object, he has to, except that I just the fund. So, I mean, hopefully it won't be games. So, it's going to be voted on Tuesday.
Okay.
Yep. So, there's the opportunity for people to speak, if you wish. The resolutions, so under the agenda rules, you can speak to items on the agenda under resolutions. So, I know everybody wants to know that I know, but what can I say?
All right, good. So do we have any questions for Laura, or?
I have one last slide.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Just in summary, we are actively monitoring development at the federal, state, and local levels for all opportunities to fund NQ systems, all of our infrastructure investments, and support our customers. We're communicating with key leaders, stakeholders, and industry associations, continuing to collaborate with the city to maximize the impact of the ARPA funds to benefit Norwich residents. We are considering hiring some consultants to assist us with the infrastructure funding opportunity, and potentially hiring a consultant to assist us with economic development funding opportunities.
We'll talk about both those in executive session.
Ma'am?
Sure.
The other item on our agenda is the authorization by ordinance of $740,000. Yes, that's mostly towards the continued effort with Business Park North, but within that is the hiring officially of Susan Lynn in DC to do some of those things as well, representing the city. So there's a chance to work in parallel together that way.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, I think
DCP, unanimous approval, that was delayed for a month, that's over. Just a matter of council approval.
Yeah, I think we're considering potentially hiring her for NPU projects.
Yes.
But, I mean, I think she can be helpful in both areas, so.
Her and the whole firm.
And her firm.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, any questions? All right. Thank you very much. And I would just note that while this begins with American Rescue Plan and federal infrastructure investment, the Congress has renewed the earmark program, which was eliminated for a number of years, so that each U.S. rep and each senator has the capacity to allocate part of the federal budget to projects in his or her district. And then there are apparently lots of other sort of regular budget funding sources that are available that we may or may not be, immediately aware of. So, I mean, there are many pockets to reach our hands into.
I've been different forums, both publicly and privately. Joe Courtney is he's very bullish about NPU, particularly the sewer project. He said it in one of his town hall meetings when I asked about, sort of traditional infrastructure investment. But then I saw subsequent to that, he said he's very interested for his team to learn more about it. So we're working, trying to schedule something in difficult vacations and hurricanes. But there couldn't be a more shovel-ready project, and it couldn't be more closer to a member of Congress than that. So. Yeah,
I mean, I think what I've heard, and I probably shouldn't prolong this too much more, but is that the federal government is less interested in funding projects for which there's an entire financing package already in place.
Where was that? I mean, I followed this pretty closely.
I've talked to 2 or 3 people in Washington about this. I mean, the sewer project, for example, we have federal grants, we have state grants, and we have a rate increase for sewer customers that covers the cost of it. And that what I've been told is that the federal government wants to have but-for projects, but for our allocation, this wouldn't happen.
First dollar, not final. The first dollar, not final.
Yeah.
All right, well, next time, in such supporting those, I'll ask them what they're receiving.
Whatever, but anyway, that brings us to executive session. And do we have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Do we have a second? All those in favor of going to executive session? It is unanimous. We're in executive session. Chris, who do you want to stay?
I would like Steve, Jeff, Larry, and Jeff, do we need Ruth or not? Your call on whether you can.
No, unless you want to get into details. She's available by phone if you need her.
Okay, very good. So that's what we need. Just Gotta wait till we get the, recording back on, Mike.
Chris.
It's usually better to be ahead of the game than behind the game, Mike, you know?
That's great.
Could be worse.
This is red. What is this one? You are, okay, good, thank you. Spike. Oh, yeah, see, it looks different on mine.
We're good?
Yep.
All right, Bob?
Yes.
You can reconvene in, regular session.
So we're going to reconvene the regular session, and the one item I believe on the agenda is to approve the new position that we talked about, the natural gas supply.
Oh, no, wastewater collection
Yes.
foreman.
Do we have a motion to do so? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? The votes are all unanimous, again. With that, I believe we can adjourn.
Yes, we can.
So we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second? All those in favor?
No, don't be.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We are all done.
Thank you.
Good.
I was interested in the moving ahead of all that green stuff. There's more